Welcome to Waywut. This is a rabbit hole podcast where we cover topics ranging from sports to true crime and pop culture to just weird facts. Really, it's just a couple of guys taking turns to present weird topics to each other. We publish episodes on Tuesdays and sometimes on Fridays. You can watch us on YouTube and listen pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, just wherever. We're probably there. We really appreciate you joining us for this episode. And now that we got all this self-promotion stuff out of the way, here we go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Waywut. I am Darrell. I will be today's host. And I'm here today with Yelp's highest rated cover-upper, Jason.
Cover-upper as in blankets?
No, No, you're the highest rated guy cover-ups. And that's despite having 1-star rate. What?
Like a fixer?
Yeah. And it's despite having 1-star ratings from P. Diddy and Epstein.
Yeah.
You have enough 5 stars where you're still the highest ones, yeah. even though you did such a bad job on theirs.
Oh well. Maybe I did it on purpose.
That's not what a good cover-upper does. Not the highest rated one.
A cover-upper with a conscience.
Ew. All right. So I'm going to, we got politics stuff happening lately and all this. I'm going to start today off with a peasant rant.
All right.
A rant for us peasants.
I'm right there with you.
Mm-hmm. All of us peasants have been completely jaded. How is it that we just, watch the elite people in our country get away with crime after crime, and we just shrug our shoulders and we're like, well, your political puppet is a bigger piece of shit than mine. No, yours is. It's like, that's what it's like, okay, well, we're going to deal with that, but yours is worse. But we just accept it. I mean, I just want to know, why aren't we angrier that they're at this point that they don't even care about hiding it anymore? I mean, I'll watch people
flaunting it.
And not that part. I mean, you do see that basically, but I mean, I've watched people on Facebook say absolute evil shit to each other because of elections, whenever they should be saying absolutely evil and hateful shit about the people that are running in those elections.
Very true. And then, mad at the wrong people.
I mean both of them, both. I'm not saying one side's better than the other. And I don't think that everybody, people need to stop and be like, oh, the elite, upper crust, all them, the people on top, those are the ones we need to not like. Both of them, any of them, all of them. There's none of them that are any good. Now, everyone is aware that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell shuttled the rich and the elite on their little island full of girls that had been, trafficked there. Epstein was arrested for sex trafficking before, he committed suicide while on suicide watch, while his suicide watchers were asleep and the cameras were turned off. Then Ghislaine,
that's a lot of ifs there.
Yeah. Then Ghislaine was convicted of sex trafficking. So they're like, yes, we presenting evidence and you are a known sex trafficker. You did this and you're going to prison for it. Now, the one thing that didn't show up in court with this were the customers. Last time I checked, it's against the law to pay money to have sex with minors.
Normally that shit would have come out.
Yeah. I mean, it was never released during any of the court proceedings. And they just had their associates, the people that work for them and stuff like that. And then, of course, the ones where shit got leaked out, but they didn't appear in court. You get the names, you get names from those that are associated with them, from the witnesses, but there's no photos and everybody has plausible deniability. Be like, no, that wasn't me. I wasn't there.
No, but police would still follow up with a drug dealer's notebook that had other drug dealers in it. Yeah. They would still follow up on those other drug dealers.
Normally.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, the flight list came out. So we know that there are CEOs, movie stars, and politicians that went to the island where these trafficked girls were, and not a single one of them had been arrested. I mean, they all were admittedly there on an island where teenage girls were, that their daddies and mommies weren't there.
Yeah.
And out of all that, Prince Andrew is the only one that got any kind of public shaming because of it. And I'm really sure he's broken up about it. He's, this terrible. People say awful things about me on Twitter. My day's ruined. Oh, now, will somebody bring me another sex slave, please? I need comfort.
Yeah.
No, instead, we just sit here. We watch our elected officials get rich. Members of Congress make $174,000 a year, which is a nice paycheck. God,
well, it's a great paycheck.
I want to make that.
I would love to make that.
But while they make, $175,000 a year, some of them have a tendency to buy and sell stocks in the millions, millions of dollars worth, like 10 times the amount of money that they, make a year, like we all do.
Yep. Walk in a thousandaire, walk out a millionaire.
The top 10 congressional moneymakers saw stock returns ranging from 63% to 238.9%. Now, for all you people listening, that have your dog in whichever hunt, you got whatever side that you're falling on, the culprits of these top 10 are exactly 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans. It is split down the middle.
Wow.
Yeah. The people,
the head of any snake.
Yeah. The people that make the laws and control the government's purse strings that impact the stock market are making amazing trades. Who would have thought it?
What a novel concept.
No, it's at a point now. You can go onto websites and you can track the trades that politicians make. And it's not so that we can, catch them in the act of doing stuff that they're not supposed to be doing.
No, you can do what they are doing.
Yeah, so we can copy them and try to make some money off of it.
Yeah,
I mean, like if people are paying attention to I saw something recently where like Nancy Pelosi's husband sold some stocks right before Visa. He had stock in Visa and he sold it right before they got hit with an antitrust thing that ended up making their stock dip 5%. So, yeah.
I mean, I want 200% returns.
Honestly, I don't even know why I'm complaining because, they're working on tweaking the existing laws that, we have, that they created, because they are the lawmakers and that they ignored those. So they're going to have new laws to ignore. So it'll be okay, right?
Maybe.
This rant wasn't very funny.
Well, it's a pretty serious rant.
Yeah.
It's pretty realistic. I mean, by the time we don't know how this election's going to go. We just don't know.
I mean, it doesn't matter. It really does matter. And people that are really, really super political get so mad at me for saying that. I'm like, it doesn't matter. When has it ever really mattered? It's always just same shit.
The fighting's never going to stop.
Yeah. So my moral of the story on the purpose of this rant, I guess, is before you start berating someone on behalf of your favorite rich person that you want in charge, remember that your rich person is also a bad person. They didn't get there being good. You've seen House of Cards. Everybody's seen House of Cards. Mm-hmm. I mean, hell, Kevin Spacey didn't even get that role being a good person.
No.
Oh, okay. That's enough of all that, because today's story is incredibly anger-inducing. This is one that's going to piss us off. So I'm
glad I took my prescription clonazepam.
I wanted to prime everybody, irritate everybody before, and then
really rile them up.
Yeah, because
jab them with a fork.
The whole reason I'm doing this one is because it chapped my ass really good, as it should.
Those assless chaps, man.
No, not that.
Gotta wear pants when you wear chaps,
Yeah,
Darrell.
I want to stop this discussion being that I know what the topic is and you don't. All right.
All right.
All right. On May 3rd, 1994, according to the April 30th to May 6th edition of the TV Guide, an hour-long documentary was supposed to air on the Discovery Channel. However, the documentary, called Conspiracy of Silence, was not aired. It didn't go on TV. Now, Discovery Channel has never officially commented on why it was pulled just hours before it was supposed to air, but it was rumored that it was after American politicians applied some pressure to the higher-ups at Turner.
Okay. That makes sense.
We do know that Discovery Channel attempted to destroy every copy of the documentary after pulling it. Fortunately, though, the people that made it still had a rough cut, and it was leaked on the internet in the 2010s. So, 15 years
ago.
later.
Yeah, 14, yeah, whatever.
Well, 15 years after it was supposed to air.
Okay.
Yeah. So this leads to an important question. What did the Discovery Channel and Yorkshire Television produce? Because it was a joint venture between Discovery Channel and Yorkshire Television. What they produce and pay for, only to just try to destroy it before anyone could ever see it.
I'm sure it has nothing to do with Bear Grylls.
Well, I watched Conspiracy of Silence on YouTube on a channel called Real Women, Real Stories. And I'm going to tell you all about it. And I'll even say right now, I'm going to put a link in the description because, I'm not going to go beat for beat on this movie. I'm going to go through a lot of it. But, if you don't want just a recap of it, you can go watch it yourself. The opening shots have text overlaying the production logo. So this is something that they did post it getting pulled. So where normally they would have brought to you by, Discovery Channel, presented, whatever. Instead, they have text overlaying the production logos describing the initial fate of the documentary. So all the stuff that I was just telling you about how this documentary was supposed to go on TV until somebody
we were told not
bought
to.
it and said, no, it's ours now. Destroy it all. It states that a British film crew went to Omaha, Nebraska to investigate an alleged pedophile ring. The documentary was filmed and scheduled to air first in the UK and Ireland, then in the US. The Discovery Channel reached out to Yorkshire Television before it aired and reimbursed the $500,000 that Yorkshire put in for the film and had them pull the movie.
So it was going to do it in Ireland first, you said?
Yeah, it was supposed to be in the UK first, in Ireland. And then Discovery Channel gave Yorkshire back their money, told them pull it, and then Discovery Channel removed it from their schedule.
Okay.
The copy that's now available is what's called a rough cut, which is a lot like a rough draft on the papers you wrote in high school. It's like, you need your rough draft first.
Pretty
so
sloppy.
It's not as clean as, after you do all the editing and things like that. Mm-hmm. So after it goes through the, that little initial introduction, it starts initially with a story that is very easily researched, that you can find lots of data on. And that is the Franklin Credit Union scandal. A man named Lawrence King was the general manager of the Franklin Credit Union. He was also the vice chairman of the National Black Republican Council. He even sang the national anthem at the 1984 Republican National Committee. So this was an up-and-comer. This is, God doing really well. I mean, in the 80s, it wasn't like there were a whole lot of black Republicans. And so, they wanted him front and center on a lot of things. Then, in 1988, the Franklin Credit Union was raided by federal agents because Lawrence King embezzled $40 million from that very credit union. Now, this is where you start encountering things that are more difficult to research, that you can't find as much on. It was
I wonder
during the
why.
yeah. It was during the investigation that 6 young people came forward claiming that King would have parties where the 6 teenagers and other minors were the party favors. Yeah. And so essentially you got this guy who's already, he's a crook. We know he's a crook. And then while they're investigating his crookedness, other things come out, and that he's pimping kids out and bringing them to the parties with people. The federal government, the ones who investigated the embezzlement, was not sharing anything that they uncovered with the authorities from the state of Nebraska. So the Nebraska state legislature created what they called the Franklin Committee to look into the embezzlement and the child prostitution allegations. They weren't going to let that part slide. They wanted to, what the hell's going on? According to the statements of the young people who came forward, they were forced into prostitution by King and flown to cities across the country for orgies. They alleged that the orgies were attended by some of the wealthiest figures in Nebraska that were politicians, businessmen, media moguls, and law enforcement. I'm not going to get into too many details on this because I'm not naming names or anything really on this. But they say which law enforcement, how high up they were within Omaha, Nebraska law enforcement. And yeah. So the state senator in charge of the committee was a Republican named Lawrence Schmidt. The investigation that there had already been reports, the investigation initially found that there had already been reports to social workers, from kids, naming Lawrence King as a perpetrator, as someone that's abusing them.
Yeah, has a track record.
Yeah, so there were documents. According to the reports, many of the kids were the boys were part of a national renowned charity called Boys Town. Boys Town had commercial accounts with Franklin Credit Union. They also had a work program where they would send some of their boys to King to gain work experience.
No,
so they would deliver him boys.
It's probably not the experience they were looking for.
No. There's a social worker that that's going over the reports. She said that they had a stack of reports that was a foot high, so a foot high of paper.
What's this time frame again?
This is in the 80s.
Okay, so it's like with a 10-year, 5-year span, or is
it's within like 5, 6 years, something along those lines.
Anyway, way too many.
When those reports were submitted, they went ignored, and as far as she knew, they disappeared. They're just gone. She also noted that they approached Boys Town, that charity I was talking about the accusations. Their response was that they had conducted their own investigations, and they found that everything was fine. Keep in mind, Boys Town is a Catholic organization run by bishops and priests.
Yeah, they have a great reputation, don't they?
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying nothing. Just saying. But yeah, they did their own investigation. They're like, no, everything's fine. Now,
kettle.
If that really was the case, that they did their own investigation, them not reporting that they received these accusations, Boys Town sitting there getting these accusations, them not reporting them to social services or law enforcement, that's illegal.
Yeah.
You don't get to police it and investigate it yourself. You're supposed to report it, especially whenever you're like an organization that works with children.
Yeah, you're not the army.
However, no one was arrested for not reporting these accusations. There was nothing.
Surprise.
Because I will tell you now, most of this is like the people in charge is like, no, there's no abuse going on ever. The thing is regardless of if there is abuse going on or not, the fact that they are required to report it by law and they didn't means that somebody from there should have went to jail or went to court or something, or that place should have been sanctioned. No, nothing. The documentary people, they attempt to give the leadership at Boys Town a chance to refute these claims, that they did their investigations and everything. But the people in charge just make it very clear that they're not even going to talk to them. Like, they show up at the place, like they're like, get out. No, we're getting security. They're like, we're not going to talk to you. It's like, okay, who wants to talk about the well-being of children? Not an organization that's responsible for, yeah.
Not our subject.
No, we don't deal with that. Now, that congressman that I mentioned earlier, Lauren Schmidt, he has a bunch of stories, but one that really stands out is he talks about while he's on the floor of the Nebraskan Congress, and he's approached by like an aide saying, "Sir, you have a phone call." While he's on the floor, and they're like, "It's an important phone call. You need to come take it." And when he gets to the phone, the person, he doesn't know who they are. They won't say who they are. They just wanted to deliver the message that it would be in his best interest if he dropped that investigation.
Oh,
yeah.
So they were watching him. Was it something that was shown on television? These floor hearings?
It's just the people. Remember, politicians were involved in the ring.
Okay. They knew where he worked, so to call him, yeah.
They worked with him.
Either way, okay. I'm following.
Are you?
Yes.
Thank God you don't investigate things like this.
No.
Now,
I'm thinking other ways.
To his credit, he did not drop the investigation. He didn't.
Good.
That main thing, it kind of bolstered him to keep pushing. Now, one of the harder parts of watching this documentary is they do show testimony that they've recorded of the 3 victims, and not like currently. I mean, they do have some current interviews, and by current I mean in 1994, but they have like video interviews with those teens when they were trying to come forward talking about this stuff. And the 3 are Paul Bonacci, Alicia Owen, and Troy Bonner. And all of them tell some very gruesome stories about the people that abused them and how they did it. It's all really, really gross, and in some cases violent. They don't hold back at all. So,
and okay.
Whenever the kids are when the teenagers are talking about it, or I think by the time that they came forward, I don't think they were teenagers anymore.
And hearing it is one thing, but writing it on paper, that's got to be hard too.
Well, yeah, I don't know. They're talking. It is them being recorded on video.
Oh, I thought you meant like an actual police report, writing it down.
No, it's super icky. And so, again, you can go watch the documentary for all the icky details.
Not that it matters, but what was the age?
Whenever they were teenagers, whenever they were getting shuffled around, like 15, 14, somewhere around there. Too young.
Yeah, I mean, it's still very young. I'm just trying to get an age.
So we're going to zip over to 1990. So 2 years after Lawrence King got busted for embezzlement. By then, Senator Schmidt hired a private investigator named Gary Caradori to investigate the prostitution ring. So they had the initial testimony from the witnesses, from the initial 6 witnesses. So the senator wanted him to find some hard evidence to support that testimony, because otherwise, it's just testimony. I mean, it's like, no, he said, she said. Now, to make sure it's more thorough, know what he's doing, Gary recorded 21 hours of testimony from those victims. And that's a lot of the recordings that you see in the documentary is his recordings where he's talking with them. And while talking to them, he uncovered the name of a photographer named Rusty Nelson. According to the 3 victims that would talk to him, Rusty was at some of the parties taking pictures of all the young people and all the things being done to the young people. So Gary, who was also a pilot, He flew to Chicago to meet with that Rusty guy, the photographer. He did knock out two birds with one stone. He brought his 8-year-old son Andrew with him, so that they could attend the Major League Baseball All-Star game while they were in Chicago. I mean, of course you will. I'm taking my kid. I mean, so everybody's, you're going to take your kid to meet some like child pornographer? Well, no, not there, but to the general city so I can take him to a ball game. Yeah. Now, according to Rusty, the photographer, he met with Gary and gave him some of the photographs. Those photographs have never been seen because Gary's plane fell apart in the air over a cornfield in Ashton, Illinois. Now, I didn't say it exploded. I didn't say it crashed. It fell apart. It broke apart in the air. And they know that because the wreckage was strewn across
pieces.
three quarters of a mile. Not necessarily, no, it wasn't perfect pieces. I've seen pictures of that. It is not, but I mean, it's because it breaks apart in the air and it's got all that forward momentum. But while it's breaking apart, some certain parts break off first. So it's scattered across like this straight line that goes 3/4 of a mile long.
Somebody had fun with the ratchet.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying. I mean, it's just, but it had it just, like crash, it would have just been like in a specific spot. It didn't like blow up. So like there wasn't like all these singed pieces. It fell apart in the air. Now, unfortunately, his briefcase that likely contained the photographs was never found. According to the documentary, witnesses said that the FBI confiscated various items from that wreckage. And it's never been seen. Yeah, it's so
not surprisingly again.
So yeah, you have this PI, him and his 8-year-old kid die whenever his plane falls apart in the sky, and it just happens to be very convenient for the people being investigated.
Yeah.
I couldn't find any documents from the FBI corroborating that they took anything from that plane crash. I did find documents that the FBI had that was covering their investigation of the private investigator, Gary, for defrauding the Nebraska state government. They were investigating him for possibly, being a scam artist. I don't know if this was just the FBI trying to coerce him, threaten him, be like, look, we'll investigate you. We'll dig into you, and we're going to cause you trouble. Right. And if you don't believe that they do that, please go back to the previous episode about Martin Luther King. FBI does some pretty jacked up stuff, and it was demonstrated in court. Or, if there was actual wrongdoing that, they were investigating. I can't say for sure because, the bulk of the documents regarding their investigation is heavily redacted. I mean, like just black line. Like, oh, there's the word "the."
Yeah. Why even have it documented out if you're going to cover it all up?
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, since we started making this podcast, I've actually had reasons to read things like FBI investigation reports. And ones like this make me laugh so hard because somebody goes in there and they fill out a Freedom of Information Act request. And, we have this law, the Freedom of Information Act, where they're like, okay, yes, in the interest of government transparency, here's this document. Wait, hold on. Let me just go ahead and black out 90% of it. And there you go. Look at us being so transparent.
That says absolutely nothing.
Yeah, you can tell what we're doing, right? Look, it says my name right there. See, I'm the investigator. We didn't black that out. It has my phone number.
We left the date and the signature. That's all you need.
Yeah, duh. Now with the death of Gary Caradori, many of the people that were involved in that investigation at the time said that they received the message loud and clear. The social worker that I was talking about earlier said she didn't feel safe investigating it anymore, so she stopped. A congressman, though, that was from the committee, a guy named John DeCamp, Spoke with his friend, who was his name was William Colby, and he was a former director of the CIA. This former CIA director advised him that, he's like, you're messing with some dangerous people. And he's like, keep the publicity going, because dangerous people like that, they can't operate out in the open. They got something to hide. So, keep dragging them out into the light. That's your best bet. Yeah. So instead of him cutting and running, he doubled down and he kept pushing. So Lawrence Schmidt and DeCamp, neither one, they kept going, and eventually they presented all their findings to state authorities and the FBI. In 1990, Alicia Owen, Paul Bonacci, and Troy Bonner all agreed to testify before a grand jury, so that they get this in front of people, get an indictment going, getting some legal proceedings going, pull all these people out there and get them in prison where they belong.
Yeah, get this ball rolling.
Yep. Now, Paul and Alicia retold the stories matching all their previous testimony. However, Troy recanted, and he claimed that the dead private investigator coached him on what to say.
A dead scapegoat. How convenient.
Yeah. Now the documentary interviews this guy. They interview him after all that, and in the interview, he claims that he was afraid because of what happened to Gary. The fact that, his plane fell apart in the sky. They killed him. Possibly. Allegedly. Maybe. So later on, he got his courage together, and he attempted to, take it back and go with his original statement, about all this abuse happening. Then his brother was killed with an accidental gunshot to the head. The documentary does not go into this accidental gunshot, but I was able to find an article that said that him and his other adult friends, so these are all adults, were goofing around with a 38 special, and it went off and killed him. Now, Troy...
pretty easy, vague story to throw out there.
Yeah. Troy does not believe that's what happened.
Duh.
And so he withdrew again. He bailed.
Yeah. I scared you once, and I'll scare you again.
Now, I'm not going to say that these people just, killed anybody that was going against them, because they did. Because the other things that they did is they indicted Alicia Owens, who was 21 years old by the time they were doing this. They indicted her for perjury. Indicted her.
Saying she lied.
Yeah. I thought you said saying she died.
No.
Yeah, they're saying she lied under oath. So you got 3 witnesses. 2 of them say the same thing. One of them says, no. And it's
Not anymore.
Well, obviously you 2 are lying. And so they were able to they indicted her for perjury.
Wow.
Whenever she went to court, she was convicted and sentenced 21 years old and sentenced to 9 to 25 years in prison.
For lying under oath?
Uh-huh.
And they wonder why people don't come forward.
And this all happened, her getting convicted and all that was before Lawrence King, the guy that I talked about at the beginning, the guy that embezzled, the guy that is, according to them, running that whole pedophile ring. This is all before he was even convicted and sentenced, in which he was eventually convicted for embezzlement, and he was sentenced to 15 years. So there was the possibility that she could serve more time than he did.
For being the victim.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunately the fucking world we live in.
Now, in my research, while I was trying to look into all this, I did find, and I say in my research because this is not something I saw on in the documentary. I found a court document that showed that the grand jury found enough evidence to convict him of pandering with young men, because that was his thing. He liked young guys. But they decided to not pursue it. They're like, no, we're just going to focus on the embezzlement, because money.
Go home.
Yeah, money, not the young guys. Let's no, come on.
Yeah.
No. we're going to focus on, we got people that really, are worried about those millions of dollars. So while the documentary was being filmed, Tom DeCamp, that guy that I mentioned earlier, that he was a state senator, he was acting as Alicia's lawyer while they were appealing her conviction for perjury, because he wasn't letting this go. He wants this out in the open, as people that, that he's supposed to protect, and people that do the same thing that he does for a living, and they're, doing shitty stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They were supposed, Troy Bonner, the guy that recanted, the guy that kept flip-flopping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was supposed to testify in the appeal about his testimony, but he did not show up to court and fled after receiving a subpoena from the prosecutor targeting Bonner for a perjury charge. So essentially, they were like, "Yeah, no, come on in. We'll go ahead and testify. We'll get you for perjury too. We'll put you in prison." I mean, if that isn't like, shitty and shady, I don't know what is.
It's one of the shittiest things I've ever heard.
Yeah. Now, it doesn't say this in the documentary, but she lost the appeal. In the end, she served 4.5 years in prison. So she got out when she was in her mid-20s. And I've also found that to this day, she has not changed her story one bit. She stands by everything that she told them.
Do you think she was actually safer in prison during that time?
No, because nobody cares about this anymore. Nobody talks about it. It all got, never mind. She's fine. Nobody's dying over this anymore. At least I don't think so.
Well, I have a few questions. You said that they shut this down right before Discovery could put it on the air. And yet they had their hands on all these people's lives some way or the other. So how did they not know this documentary was getting made before it was finished?
Knew it was getting made.
Why didn't they shut it down before it was completed and about to be put on the air? And then we're like, now wait a minute. Whoa.
Well, because then this is a lot. No, all right. Whenever you're making a movie, all right, you have producers, you have funding, stuff like that. They were being funded by Discovery and this place. Now, what part of having, being the producers of it is that you get to own it. It's yours. But if you pull your funding, say they pressured them and they're like, never mind, we're going to scrap this project, pull the funding. All they're going to do is they're going to take this project and they're going to go to another production company, or they'll self-fund it and they will still have it made. This was smarter because they make the movie. It's owned by Discovery. I've got a buddy who's got a buddy who's got a buddy who can leverage to make them squash it. And then we get the rights to it. And then legally we can make sure nobody shows it because we own the rights. It's our copyright.
They play the long game. They'll let them finish it so they could take it for themselves.
It was the smarter play.
Okay. All
right. So the documentary ends with a disillusioned state senator, a lawyer trying to drag this story out in the light in front of everybody, a guy on the run, a girl in prison, in all likelihood, a bunch of monsters who will never have to face up to what they did.
Probably still doing it.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
That's the documentary in a very weak nutshell. It's less than an hour long, and it's infuriating because nothing has changed. People on top still get to do whatever they want. They still they're more bold about it. They don't have to hide it quite as hard. They're like, yeah, sure, go ahead and put our suppliers in jail. Whatever.
Has it been taken away from YouTube and brought back up several times?
It has.
Okay.
I mean, I'm hoping the link that I put up will still be up. We'll see. But yeah, when you get these rich people in charge, and occasionally their pawns will go down. Their pawns will get captured and taken, but they're still sitting pretty on top. That's how it works. Did research for additional information because, like I said, this documentary was made in 1994, so that's why there is things that I've mentioned throughout that I found. I found some other interesting things. One is there was a lobbyist named Craig Spence that was involved in a gay prostitution ring for Washington, D.C. politicians. And the guy running it, he did the stupid thing, and he started blackmailing, the customers, which of course, your customers are the powerful in Washington, not the smartest thing to do. Now, Spence, I bring him up because he was allegedly an associate to Lawrence King, the guy that was heading up that pedophile ring. But he never got to testify about any of it because one day he barricaded himself in a room and overdosed on alcohol and antidepressants in November of 1989.
Man, somebody got a guilty conscience.
He's like, could he talk? Well, not now. The CIA guy, the director of CIA, William Colby, one I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this isn't necessarily tied to this specific thing, but it's just CIA shady. He drowned in 1996. It was ruled an accident. The medical examiner believed he may have had a heart attack while canoeing. There are a lot of people that don't believe that was true at all. Like, there are various witnesses saying, I saw somebody there and his boat was there. And it wasn't there, it was there all the way until it got dark, and he never went canoeing after the dark. So I don't understand.
Another convenient, vague story.
Yeah. Troy Bonner, the guy that,
flip-flopper.
Yeah, the flip-flop guy. He died of a drug overdose after going to a hospital saying he was being pursued.
He probably thought everybody was chasing him at that point.
He very well could have, because, it was a loose end. He was a loose ends. And that's where all this will end. There's nothing else. The people that squashed this documentary, for the most part, succeeded. Not in the essence that, it's completely unknown, but the fact that, they didn't get the exposure. A lot of people, tons of people, most people have no idea this documentary even exists. That's why I'm doing my little way of promoting it.
I hope people hear it and it raises a ruckus.
That's why I'm putting the link in there. I want people to watch what someone powerful didn't want you to see and make up your own mind. Because, it's a documentary. It doesn't mean it's all true. It could be that all this is bullshit.
Yeah, it could be very skewed. I don't
think it is, but that's my opinion. Look at the information and make up your own mind.
Absolutely.
So
if it's a good documentary and it predicts or presents the facts, then you can go with it.
It's good. There's bias in this, but that's because, who the hell wants to try to argue for
on the side of a pedophile?
Well, yeah. Bummer ending. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, join us next time, unless Jason is too busy silencing me and getting another good Yelp review. But if he isn't too busy doing that, Jason will, take some time, tell us about some stuff that'll make us say, wait, what? All right. Don't silence me, Jason. We're best friends.
No, the next one will be not so heavy. We won't need your Kleenexes for crying. Maybe laughing.
No, I promise my next one will be light and fluffy. I already know what it's going to be.
I need to drink more now.
Okay, see ya.
Later.
Thank you for joining us for Waywut. We really appreciate you watching or listening. Please subscribe or follow us on your favorite platform to catch our latest episodes that we publish on Tuesdays and sometimes on Fridays. We'd love to hear from you, whether it's rating us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, commenting on our videos or just a podcast episode, or following us and hitting us up on TikTok, Facebook, or X. You can find us there with our handle, Waywut Podcasts. That's WAYWUT Podcast. And that will do it for this episode. Join us next time. We'll make you say, Waywut.